And we are live, everybody. Hello.
Hey,
Hello.
this is what we do.
Different you too.
We don't. We're gonna have some interesting topics we'll get into in just a second. What those are, but I'm just excited. We're gonna talk a little economics tonight, Kevin.
Yes. You know
Yes.
what? The engine, the oil that keeps our modern day society flowing.
Yes.
Boy, nothing slows down a podcast like economics talk. Let's get to some exciting stuff, huh?
Well,
I'll tell you what
comics.
slows down nicely is this Miller High Life. That's right, the champagne and beers right there.
Well,
Now, would Black Adam drink a Miller High Life?
No, he'll probably have some weird like Egyptian kind of like mulled wine or something like that.
Probably like a mead.
Yeah.
well, Donald. I mean, let's use economics in an everyday example. Didn't you use economics to your advantage to sell your Miles Morales first appearance?
Now, I haven't sold it yet, actually. I just talked to the guy that did the clean press and submission to CGC, and it did come back a 9.8, which is great.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to post
Very
it
good.
online once I get it in my hands, because I don't want to pre-sale something I don't have physically in my hands. So once I get it, I can do that. Yeah. So you're right. That's economics, and definitely.
Yeah, because I mean that's basic supply and demand principle right there. I mean, you bought the supply when it was not in demand. Now it's in a massive amount of demand, and thus you have gold, actual gold.
Text
And that'll be a
D.
discussion in a future. That'll be a discussion in a future pod on the latest spec books coming up.
Oh, I thought
in the
gold
future.
was. Okay. Well, whatever. Whatever. All right, and going right back to, okay, I posted on Facebook, so you guys will see the link, and then now I just have to make it available for everybody, and we'll be ready to rock and roll.
All right.
It's exciting times we live in. Technology. It's crazy.
Did you pick up any books this week, Jared? Any new comics?
I'm a big rereader, so I'm rereading a bunch of old X-Men, like the Claremont run. I just finished The Boys. I finally finished the series of The Boys.
Nice, dude.
And, I loved it. It's great. It's really fun. And I know the show kind of differs, but it's enough alike to keep my entertainment. So I'm still pumped for the show. The book is really fun. So
Excellent. Okay,
Yeah.
we're public, we're live, we're ready as soon as you all want to get started. I'm going to pop up in the title here what we're going to be discussing first. A little bit of a sad moment, so give me a second for that to post that in here.
All right.
There we are. I see us.
Yeah?
Start sharing. Let's see.
All right. Start spreading the word.
Start spreading the news.
Especially to our old Arclight buddies.
The Arclidians.
Yes, the Arclidians. Matter of fact, one of them messaged me over the weekend to send them a reminder. So I did. Let's send them the link right now. One of your favorite people, Darren.
I have lots of favorite people, Kevin.
He's your fourth favorite person.
My fourth. Wow, that's something.
Maria says evening, gentlemen. So evening, Maria.
What's up, Maria?
Tip of the cap to you too, Maria.
Thanks for tuning.
Sorry, I watched Anchorman not too long ago.
Ha!
You know, the first one is classic. The second one, not so much.
Boy, it's bad.
Yeah. Agreed.
That's the biggest problem with comedies in general, unfortunately. It's very difficult to hit gold twice with a comedy because it's just all about timing and if it makes sense. Like the Naked Gun movies, those three, it works out. They're all good, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, like it's funny. Like every single sequel that I don't really like, that I think is unnecessary, I just refer to it as blah blah 2, the smell of profit.
Absolutely. Well, Kevin, I've posted that what we're going to be discussing at the bottom of the screen, and I'll pull up a picture.
Especially when it's just like joke regurgitation.
I'll pull up a picture here.
All right, let us begin, right?
Okay, give me one moment. Let's see. There we go. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters of podcast land. Welcome to the most wondrous, righteous, spacious, and most spectacular podcast on planet Earth today, The Real Short Box. And I have with me my three brothers of the Short Box. First, let me start with the man, the legend, the Baron from Youngstown, Ohio. He carries that big stick of truth. He is a master thespian of the arts. He is a debonair of modern day masculinity. Brothers and sisters, I present to you Mr. Darren.
Woo! Woo!
Like I said a couple weeks ago, quite frankly, I have nothing to add.
And next to him, to the lower right of my screen, I call him the defender and lover of the short box. He also hails from the Buckeye State. He was the 1997 Mr. Teen Ohio. He is a master collector of Silver Age comics. And he is the Count of North Hollywood. Ladies and gentlemen, he is a man of hearts. He is the original Donald.
Yeah. By the way, that bikini portion of the Mr. Ohio was really wonderful. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
A bit awkward for me, but you know.
And of course, last but not least, he is the man of international mystery. He is an intimate lover of Bronze Age comics, and he needs no further introduction. He is simply the president and CEO of the Black Adam and Luke Cage fan clubs. Brothers and sisters, the Marquis of Napa Valley. He is known as Sweet White Chocolate. His name is simply Jared.
Whoa! I'm gonna do my ravishing Rick Rude, throw my chest sweat at you right there.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Simply ravishing.
Oh, my
Here we
goodness,
go.
he's gyrating, folks. Watch out, he's gyrating.
Uh-oh.
Now,
The Miller High Life has kicked in.
Not.
and of course, I am your humble podcaster, the Grand Master and Supreme Chancellor, Dr. Kevin.
You know, at some point you're going to actually have to go in for your doctorate so you can actually call yourself Dr. Kevin.
That's true. That's very true.
I mean, if John Cena can be the doctor of thugonomics, anything is possible, Kevin.
It's
Anything
true.
is possible.
It's true. Okay, so we're going to be what we're going to be discussing ultimately is our overall thoughts on comic books going away as a physical medium, and how that will affect a whole entire industry of collectors and shop owners, children, what have you, grown-ass men in their 70s sniffing their books.
Will there be an industry, and if so, what the hell is it going to look like?
Right. But before that, I think, Kevin, you had wanted to bring something up. I have it on the screen now. I've got Mr. Bozeman's picture,
Photo.
and the underneath it, it'll say it's the Chadwick tribute.
Yes, thank you. As you know, this past Friday, many of us were shocked by the untimely death of Mr. Chadwick Boseman. And, I was especially hit hard by this, and especially as a man of African descent, I was very much touched by the Black Panther movie. It presented African culture in a positive light. The movie didn't go through the usual stereotypes of Black people, as drug dealers and pimps and all kinds of, nonsense you see on the streets. And Chadwick portrayed the character T'Challa with great intelligence, dignity, and showed love for his culture and for his people. And his acting career, throughout the years, he displayed characters. He played dignified roles of successful black men, such as James Brown, such as Jackie Robinson. And, he always gave it 110% in his acting roles. And Chadwick was certainly a role model to me, as well as to many young people of color, but just people in general. Was a very, wonderful person from what I was told. A personal friend of mine told me that he met him on a few occasions and said he was a gentle soul, a wonderful person. And I think we're going to be forever grateful to him for his contributions that he made to the world of entertainment. But also, the best thing about him is that he was a world-class humanitarian. So for me, I want to say thank you, Mr. Chadwick. Thank you, Mr. Boseman. May God bless your soul. May God rest your soul. May God bless your family. And rest in peace, brother.
Yeah. Yeah, the one thing I just want to say is that finding out what he was going through and when he was going through it, what a heartbreaking story, but what a remarkable story, because just the fact that, as we know, I mean, most of us in the comic world knew him from Black Panther. Like, that's how we were introduced to him. He already was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer when he was doing Black Panther, Civil War, all those movies and the following movies after that. And from all intents and purposes, kept it to himself and realized the importance of the character, realized the importance on society. Even the director himself came out today and was talking about, just paying tribute to him, and said, I didn't even know if Black Panther was going to be the movie it was going to be, but he did. He made all these requests to have using an accent. They weren't even going to originally have T'Challa have an accent. It was his idea. He said, no, he's got it. He's from another, it's an African culture. He should have an African accent. And just what a true superhero in real life, not just on the screen, in real life, true superhero. So rest in peace, Mr. Boseman.
Yes, I'll throw in on that. Definitely shocking, very surprising, a very sad moment. In such incredible outpour from the community, not just from the comic book world, but from the entertainment world and just people in general that knew of him through his talent. And it's surprising that you're seeing a lot of Black Panther comic strips and stuff, Stan Lee welcoming him and saying, you were the best kid and things like that. You're seeing a lot of that, but you're also seeing a lot of people praising his other work that he did. Playing, James Brown, and playing Jackie Robinson. And
Thurgood Marshall.
What's that?
Yeah, Thurgood Marshall.
Yeah.
Was another
And just his overall contribution in general in such a short span that he was able to do, how much he was able to impress people with his talent and his kindness and his skill overall, and it's humbling. And so Darren, do you have anything you want to add before we move?
Yeah, I mean, the man had cancer for 4 years, and I don't know if this was ever widely reported. What I think is interesting to me is that some people in Hollywood still like to remain private about their lives, and I don't believe Chadwick, at least from what I could tell, he wasn't a guy that you saw hanging out at every party and doing all this kind of extra stuff or getting in trouble. And I think that's something that I think gets underappreciated a lot today. And you also you'll see some people who will praise him. You'll see some people that were just kind of like have no opinion, but I don't recall anyone ever saying anything nasty about the man. And I think that is a very important trait that will definitely go into his legacy.
Yep. So, real quick, if we can, just take a moment of silence. I know we're doing a podcast, and when you're on the air and stuff, it could be detrimental, but we're taking the risk. So, a moment of silence for Chadwick for the work he's done and for him as an individual. So, just one moment, please. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for taking the time to be with us on that, and we're going to move on now to another troubling, I guess you could say, thing in the industry that's happening, or that could be happening, is the erosion of physical media in the comic book world. So, who would like to start?
The tangible book to the digital, right?
Right. So let's kind of break this down. Where do we want to start with this?
Kevin, why don't you take it?
Yes. We can start with back in the spring, and this is something that even I wasn't aware of. The DC Comics, their contract, their distribution deal they had with Diamond had expired. Now, just by coincidence, COVID-19, the pandemic was starting, so they took it as an opportunity to say, you know what, we're breaking away. We're not going to renew the deal. And of course, this was shocking to many people, within the industry. And instead, what I found out, and Sir Donald also found out as well, they have two companies that are now distributing the comics. One is Lunar, which is owned by Discount Comic Book Service, and then UCS, which is owned by Midtown Comics. So it's very interesting that they've gone down this path. And a friend of ours who happens to own one of the shops in town had mentioned to us that the one problem they do have with this new system is sometimes the books are late, coming in, got a little bit behind.
I heard also one time the book showed up like a week early.
Yeah.
What? Really?
Yeah. Weird things like that.
Yeah, they
so just for the layman real quick, let's just say, so the biggest distributors, meaning the people who the local comic shops, or they say LCS, order from was Diamond Select, right? They were the whole monopoly, right?
Everything, yes.
So then COVID-19 happens, and a lot of companies, I know the big ones, Marvel and DC, pretty much said, stop producing the physical books right now. We're going to take a timeout,
right?
Because people can't even come into the shops anyway. And then, as you were saying, Kevin, DC's contract with Diamond ended, and so they went their separate way with these two other companies. So is everybody else, for all intents and purposes, still with Diamond?
Yes, I believe so.
At the moment, yes, Marvel's still there.
Although I think Image is kind of circling, if I recall, it's Lunar. They've been circling them a little bit, so there's a possibility there. Also, keep in mind that, and Jarrett, you broke it down really well. When you're dealing with comic books, they're produced by the publisher. So DC Comics is the publisher of DC characters: Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Flash. Marvel is distributed. Disney owns Marvel, and Warner Brothers, AT&T owns DC. So. Disney Marvel is, what we're looking at is Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, Scarlet Witch, Black Widow, those characters, Black Panther, all those characters together. And they're also distributed through, and printed through Disney Marvel. So they're getting theirs printed, and then DC, AT&T, Warner Brothers is getting theirs printed, and then they're like, okay, we have all these books, how do we get them out to the shops? And that's where Diamond steps in, and Diamond says, hey, we're a company that will take your books and we'll deliver them to every single comic book shop in the United States. And
promote too, right? They put like a
yes.
promotion for like, these are all the books hitting.
Right. We'll print out a preview published guide that people can look at and see what they want. Comic book shops can order how much they want. We'll take back certain amounts of books. That'll be on us, and we'll work with that, so it was a very good service to have for people like DC and Marvel, because they don't really care about doing their own distribution. They just want the money. They want to print the books. They want to write. They have to write. They have to edit. They have to publish. And they did not want to distribute. That's not something that they also wanted to do. So Diamond stepped in to do that, and they did it very well to a point, but also not as well as you would like. And like Jared said, when the pandemic came in March, Diamond was like, we can't confidently get these into shops because shops aren't open in a lot of areas. So we're going to shut down our distribution. So then DC and Marvel and them were kind of stuck with these books that they've already printed, and also had no source of income to generate by selling these books or future books until said pandemic came to a close.
Right.
And of course, the LCS is obviously hurt the most because
Yes.
they have nothing coming in. Plus, if your city's telling you, hey, you need to be closed because you're not considered an essential service, then what choice do you have? That's why the interest in alternate that's been happening, Donald, has been the power of Instagram live sales.
Oh, that saved stores, in my opinion.
Well,
right?
Yep.
let's go to that in a moment. Let's continue on this path, though. So basically, I spoke to a gentleman, a great comic shop owner. His name is Tom, Comics Card and Collectibles in South Canton, Ohio. Great guy. Love his shop. Tom, if you're listening, love your shop, buddy. And always enjoy our conversations when I'm in town. So Tom was telling me that when he first got into the comic book industry 40 years ago, guys, he's been doing it a while.
Wow.
He said, he said that when he first got into it, he thought that sales was going to be driven from older books, from collectibles. And he said he was actually very surprised it was the exact opposite. Sales was driven by new content, by new books coming in. And he said the reason why is because people had something to look forward to each week, and they would come in each week, and then they would look in his back issue boxes and then buy something else. But if left to their own devices, oftentimes people get distracted and they don't think about going to a shop to pull and pick at older books. So he said that he was able to generate enough revenue with the sales of new books to keep his shop going. And as a startup shop at the time, that's what kept him going. So imagine, much like one of our friends that's in Southern California that has just opened a shop this past November. Not more than, 4 or 5 months later, you're hit with a pandemic and told you're forced to close your shop.
Mm-hmm.
Holy hell, you're driven by the sales of new books when you're first opening and you're trying to generate sales to keep your shop alive. How nerve-wracking that can be. And they're still around and they're actually thriving. So our hats off to them there at We Can Be Heroes. We can say the name. At We Can Be Heroes. There you go. Tip of the hat to you for being able to maintain sustainability in an environment that's been very rocky, to say the least. And one more thing I want to add. Kevin, you said that it was Lunar, and what was the other name of the company?
Lunar and UCS.
UCS and Lunar. The other company that we did not state, UCS and Lunar took over where Diamond left off. UCS is Midtown Comics, right? Their distribution service. So Midtown Comics, imagine if you're another comic book shop, and now you're depending on a comic shop, up the road or in another state or something to distribute books to you. Your
conflict of interest, possibly.
Kind of competition is now, giving you books. It's like back when DC was publishing Marvel books and putting those out for Marvel for a while, and they limited them to so many books that they could have because they didn't want to put them out completely because they like money, but they wanted to cripple them real good. So,
of course,
I'm not saying right. Go ahead.
These two new companies, of course, have stated publicly that they're not going to play favorites, but we live in the real world. We'll see how that goes.
We'll see, right?
Diamond already was a monopoly. I mean, it was a flat-out monopoly.
Yeah, so this could be a good thing. Also, keep in mind, Penguin Random House is now publishing or distributing the trade paperbacks
right
of DC Comics. So they're another tier on this. Diamond was
but
doing all
that's
of that.
dangerous because it's owned by Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin.
Right, correct.
You know, so it's only going to get bad.
That's true. That's true. And you know, I always thought there was a connection with them and the Umbrella Corporation too, but
That's right.
could be
Yeah,
wrong.
that's true. You never know.
Could be wrong.
Some real conspiracy theorist is going like, "Oh my god."
Right. So DC breaks away from Diamond Distribution. Comic book shop owners instantly shit their pants. They're nervous, and with good reason, because these are some untested sources that they haven't gotten distribution from in the past. So what does that lead to? Does that lead to, you know, besides questions for these companies, what if if it succeeds, great, but what if these distributors fail? What are we
Right.
looking at as an impact to your local comic book shop?
Well, and then also what kind of ties into what I wanted to talk about is, so because we weren't getting physical books, the only way to get any kind of new book or any kind of reading material at all was to go to digital comics. Now, the kind of, not monopoly, but basically the premier company for digital comics is an app or a service called Comixology.
Mhm.
I love them. I think they're great. I think they were the #1 app for like a minute. They were like the #1 selling app. They started in 2007. And I think when they first started, they were putting out digital comics, but they didn't have the Marvel DC library. Marvel was kind of doing their own digital. DC had their own digital. Dark Horse had their own. Everybody had their own digital format to kind of start that whole process.
Right.
But then Comixology streamlined it and got it all under one umbrella.
Isn't it-
Oh shit!
Right.
One umbrella.
Yep. Hey, Jared, isn't it funny though, if you think about it, how it's the complete opposite for streaming with like Netflix? How Netflix was kind of all under one umbrella, and then you had like Hulu over here,
Yeah.
and then maybe a smattering of one or two there. But now you're getting all these other new ones: Disney Plus, the Peacock Network, Apple Network, all of them
Yeah.
like starting to branch out and build. CBS All Access is just getting bigger and bigger. Where Comixology kind of just was like, I'm gonna make you an offer you can't refuse, and pull everybody under.
Well, and then the beauty of when you could deem their success is they got bought by Amazon. So that was
Yeah.
huge. Once that happened, it was like kind of nail in the coffin for any other ones. Not that there won't be. If anything changes, is always going to happen. But the thing with Comixology, just as a collector, when I found the digital medium, I was very 50-50 on it. I was like, I said nothing will compare to owning a physical comic, because you don't really own the digital media. It's up in the cloud somewhere. You have
Right.
access to it as long as you have a computer, internet, and access or access to the cloud that it's saved in. So it was always kind of iffy to me. I gradually started going towards it because it'd be like, well, hey, I always wanted to try that book, or I always wanted, hey, I'm going to read an Incredible Hulk #1 because I can't afford it, or for me it was, I don't want to have to keep buying trade paperbacks. I could buy them for like half the price digitally and read the whole thing on my computer, tablet, whatever.
Right. Jared, if I recall, you had at one point put a pin in your collecting, and you were like, I'm just going to get trades. And
Yep.
then you told me, wait, this was such a bad idea because trades are so heavy and bulky, and
Yeah.
I
It
took
was
up so
cool in
much
my
room.
bookcase for a bit, but I was like, I'm not gonna like maybe half these I'll reread at some point. But if I'm moving, I gotta move all this other shit, So I started. I got rid of my trades, and I finally started, and I got back into collecting the issues because I realized like the collecting market will never be touched by digital. As far as you can't, like what I was just saying, you can't sell a digital copy for. You can't say like, I have Amazing Fantasy 15 for Spider-Man digital. They'll be like, great, everybody can have that for $2.
Right.
Whereas if you have the actual copy, that's a shit one is $15,000. So for me, I can divide it into a split now, like, because I do enjoy reading on digital, especially with, I think, patent pending guided view, which is what Comixology has, where
Yeah.
pretty much you swipe, you can choose it. You can swipe and have a whole page, or you can go panel to panel. And I kind of can't read comics it physically anymore. Like, I will collect them physically, but reading them, once I had guided view, I was like, you get this whole great piece of art, super focused on this one panel. Go to the next panel. Go to the next. It's just, there's no comparison to me of just reading a normal book anymore.
Yeah,
So,
it's a lot of fun to experience. I like you was not a fan of digital at first, and then I took a trip, some international traveling, and I was like, well, I can't bring just one trade with me because it's 12 hours on the plane, what have you, somewhere around there. So I need to bring 5. That's heavy. That's a lot to carry. And, I didn't want to do that. So I was looking into apps and stuff on my phone, and I found Comixology, and I tried that. I read some Darth Vader comics from Marvel. And when they started to move and would go over and up and move around and stuff, if you would just press and it would like go up and press, it would go to the next page. It was so action involved that I started to really get into it. And I found myself sitting on my bed on vacation on a beautiful island in the tropics reading more Darth Vader on my tablet because of just how cool it was. Sure, I was sipping on like a watermelon smoothie or like Jack and Coke or something, but it was fun. It was enjoyable, and I had a good time doing it. So yeah, there's definitely a place for it. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, especially week by week, they have like sales all the time on trades, on books. So a trade that's normally like $30, you can get for like $5 sometimes.
Yeah,
so you get a whole run.
They do offer free books too. Like, I don't know if it's daily, but I know whenever I'm on there, they have a free section.
There's free books, and there's also a subscription. So you can get like a Comixology subscription, and you have access to like 3/4 of their library of Marvel, DC, Image, everything.
Yeah, so it's really smart. It's a smart way to do business, but not the end way to do business. I think there's a way that they can both coexist, digital and print. And unfortunately, I think this kind of leads us into the fact of the merger, so to speak, where AT&T reached out and touched someone. They they purchased from Time Warner to get Warner Entertainment and everything, and now AT&T owns DC Comics, which is an interesting thing that we're going to talk about here next, I believe, like a quick thing on that.
So there was a bunch of layoffs, right? Like DC was laying off a bunch of people.
Yeah, yes. Recently, they laid off 1/3 of their editorial team.
Right.
Now, interesting enough, some sources I was reading saying this was going to happen anyway, even before COVID, but it's kind of like the perfect excuse to just say, oh, let's do it. Let's chop them off. And then, of course, as you know, before that, Dan DiDio was relieved of duties from DC.
I couldn't have been happier on that one.
Kind of abrupt, too, right? It was pretty...
Yeah, kind of abrupt.
Yeah.
And of course, when you're in that type of position, they always give you a nice, smooth way out. It's always written very politely. I've decided to move on, and bigger and better things, all that good stuff.
Yeah. And then, like, when you were a kid and you were working at McDonald's, it was like, I'm out, bitches. It's like a whole different experience.
Yeah.
Or like at our old job, well, at least 3 out of 4 of us, we were Arclidians. Well, what was that term? Oh, yes. Deselected.
That's literally what they called it, Jared. They didn't say you were fired. They said you were deselected.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was almost like you're being like removed from the Matrix or something like that.
That sounds like a robot came up with that. Like,
yeah.
I know.
Deselected. You're like, no.
They told me, they said if I didn't quit, I was going to be deselected. So I chose to deselect myself.
Wow.
Yeah. So DC Comics purchased by AT&T. Now, gentlemen, my number one instinct on this is AT&T owns. They're a phone. Before any of this, they were a phone line company. They basically, that's where you got your long distance. That's where you paid your phone bills. Was AT&T. There was AT&T. There was MCI, I believe, and then there was Sprint.
Yep.
and those were the big ones.
Who are on the clock.
Yeah, and so you had these big companies. Now, AT&T being a phone company, they also sell cellular phones. They have a big cellular phone service. I believe they were the first ones with iPhones to provide the service. So they were groundbreaking in that way. They want digital content because the more your eyes are on your phone, the more you're spending time in need of their service.
Right.
So AT&T, in my eyes, is starting to go, we're having this trouble. There's a pandemic. Digital seems to be working. Comic shops are in trouble because they can't get print. We can't sell books because we can't get them distributed. We're struggling with the new distribution. Maybe we go all digital.
Right.
All right.
Now,
It's a nice little theory.
if they did do that, what would we be looking at? Anybody want to kind of pull that out?
Well, the collecting of DC Comics, as far as the collector's market for DC Comics would be finite to a point. So that would mean like up to this book, like DC probably would go through the roof on the collector's market because it'd be like you're never getting a DC comic again, like physically.
Right.
But you'd never get a DC comic again physically. So like you create a new character, it's not going to be a rush to like download that comic because it's going to be like it's not going to be worth anything.
Right.
It's like yes, there's the people who are interested in the stories, like we all are, but like the you just killed your collector's market pretty much.
Yep. You can't resell it.
Yeah.
Can't CGC it.
Yeah. So the
Right.
Green Lantern issue, blah blah blah, is introducing a new character. I'll be like, yeah, cool. So what? Like,
I can't hold it. I can't hold it.
you can't hold it. The most you can do is promote it as like a movie, but
Right.
even to do that, you have to get hype behind it. You got to get
Yep.
hype. You know.
Yep. I believe it's very important to note that the collector's market drives the business.
Especially the variants.
The people just the variants and everything else. It's just not the variants. But the collectability, yes, variants are driven by that. But the people are driving the rabid fan base of the characters and things, and it's for a love of them for some, but it's also for collectability from a collectability standpoint, the value of these characters and what they're going to be worth. And we're living in a completely different time. When we were younger, we would get an occasional superhero movie here or there.
Right.
When I was in my teenage years, we were lucky that we got the Phantom and the Shadow within a year or two of each other, and they were relatively obscure for people of our age, but older people were like, yes, they were shitting themselves because this is stuff that they grew up with.
Right.
So now we're to a point where we're older, and now we're shitting ourselves because of the material that they're putting out in theaters and stuff and on television and things. And the technology's gotten so great that a lot of these things are really easy to do that they weren't able to do prior. So we're in a really good time right now.
And
we're in a golden age.
A quick segue, yeah, golden age for sure. A quick segue back for if you didn't watch our last episode or listen to our last episode, we were shitting ourselves over the DC fandom announcement. So if you want to go back and watch that episode to see us shit on live, I definitely Suicide Squad. I was pretty. Yeah.
I believe you turned bright red and were like making like.
I looked like my 1.5-year-old. Yeah, I was like.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between the two of you.
Like that scene in Training Day when he's like, push it real hard in there.
Yeah, yep, real hard. So one thing, one caveat to this, the first appearance thing that we're talking about with digital not meaning anything. One thing that could save, potentially, DC is if they continued. If they did do this, if they stopped doing printed comics and they went digital, what could save them is if they still did printed trades.
Right.
Printed and distributed still through Penguin Random House, they could get these trades out to the market, and that then would be the first appearance. So what they
Right.
could then do is make a limited run and create the fever pitch
Create-
of
create demand.
collectability in that,
Great
because
demand, yeah.
then you're creating this fan base by generating this really cool character, right? And people are like, oh man, that's such a cool character, I wish I could have gotten the first appearance. And then they're like, well, you can in trade form coming soon from DC
Right.
Comics.
And you can
Well,
collect
they
the
can
first
hype
6
it up
issues.
too of like, you know, it's coming out. We're gonna wait to tell you the announcement of when this book is gonna drop, kind of thing. So it's like,
Yeah.
then people are gonna be going to Amazon. People are gonna be going to, you know, like all this. Yeah.
Yeah.
You get like the first 6 to 8 issues of that particular character's new stories.
So there's ways that they could do it still and make a collectability market, but they have to be smart about it.
Right.
And I'm not even saying that that's a really smart way to do it, because unless they're putting out a ton of them, or you know they're hiring more writers to create more content so they have more published work like that. Because if you think about it, they're putting out 1 issue a month, and then we're doing 5 to 7, usually 5 to 6, 7 issues, create a trade. And then you've got volume 1, volume 2. Well, if that's a monthly thing, you've got to wait 5, 6 months until you get that trade. So where are you in the meantime? You're just sitting there biting your thumb, waiting. And meanwhile, Image is putting out printed books, and they rock. So
Right.
you're going over there. So they have to then look at producing what Netflix has to do, producing continuously more content for people
Yeah.
to absorb and to get hyped up about.
Now, that could be the key, by the way. If the independent labels continue to print traditional books, that might help. So if Image says, you know what, we're going to stick to giving you a monthly title. We're not going to go completely digital. If Dark Horse, if Boom, IDW stick to the cause, then that would help. That would help. People know, oh, I still can get Saga or still get, you know, Criminal or get whatever monthly.
Yeah.
Might-
I mean,
might
I hope I don't eat my words, but I just don't see, as long as there's collectors out there, and I think the collectors market has actually skyrocketed in a weird way because of COVID in some way,
Yep.
because of what
You're at home. You're at home.
You're at home, and what Kevin, what you were saying is a lot of those local comic shops, how they stayed afloat was they started doing these online auctions.
Yep.
Or just, you know, basically they promote it all week and say, hey, We Can Be Heroes is going to have a live auction on March 8th, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
And then they start, and I get addicted to just watching them because I'm like, oh, what's that
Yeah.
for? What's that going to go for? You know,
And they're
I
making
have-
money too. They're
Yeah.
making money. People are claiming books left and right. You know, here we go. We got Kamala Khan first appearance. And all of a sudden, boom, you know, someone already makes a claim.
Yeah.
So they ain't playing around. Even crappy books, you know, people are like, yeah, I'll take that, you know.
And we were talking about the, I think off air, the variant phenomenon. You know, like I could care less, but people are all about the variants. Like those, that's a huge market, like a huge market.
Yeah.
You know, Donald, you know, there's a gentleman that comes by, you know, the shops that we know very well. He's very heavily into collecting variants.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, there's some people that are really into it. And you think, oh, that's funny. That's cute or whatever. But some of that
take it
shit
seriously.
will just come out and be worth like, you know,
$1,000.
$1,000. Yeah. And you're
Yeah,
like,
why not
what?
that? Yeah.
So
Doesn't make sense to me, but hey.
real quick to recap there real quick before we move on. So I had a talk with Tom as well about what we thought if Disney, what if Disney and / Marvel goes all digital, and what would happen there. Particularly if Disney went all Marvel went all digital after DC AT&T went all digital, the market would be unsustainable for Diamond. And at that point, then Diamond would be that would be the end of Diamond, essentially. Right. They couldn't survive. So what we would see is what him and I were talking about would be local distribution, which would be zines. Things that we used to, you know, Ashkins, stuff that we used to see a long time ago from very small independent companies and independent press. We would start to see that more. So we would see perhaps a Mad Max, Darren, kind of a situation where we had Ohio's distribution versus Michigan's distribution, and territories carved out where if you were trying to distribute in Michigan Ohio published books of comics, you'd have to make a deal with their godfather over there in order to get your books over there, and then they could trade and back and forth, and you'd have almost kind of an underground system in a way of freaking comic books. Guys, it could get dark. There is a possibility we have a Mad Max.
Walk away. These are my comics.
Yes.
Walk away.
It's walk away.
Exactly. So we could have that potential situation. And people, if you think I sound crazy, if I told you last year you'd have to sit in your room for a month because of a virus that was going to be spread around, and the president would be addicted to Twitter, in the future, like, no one would believe me on some of this shit that's happened now, like, no one would believe me. But it is now officially a possibility, because things can't, they're only going to get crazier, or they'll stay the same, and it's still crazy. So whatever you're looking at, it's all going to be that type of situation. So there are possibilities there. By the way, David says, what up? It's David Denenberg. Hello, David. Good to see you.
What's up, David?
So that's my thoughts on that. But we need to go ahead and move on from that subject. And we talked about local comic book shops surviving by doing online sales, claim sales, auctions, things like that. So good on them for being able to do that and get creative, because that's what you have to do to survive in that industry. I know, Darren, I think you had something to discuss.
Yeah, actually, it's perfect. David just coming in. I saved this for you, David. So what I want to get into is, you guys are talking about the sustainability of printable comics, the rise in digital comics. I want to look at it from a pretty basic economic perspective. So if you are just a layman who goes in to your regular convention, okay, and you see what's going on, it's very obvious that cataloged books or just older books are sold for insane amounts of money. I think that hasn't changed, honestly, in a few decades. With digital comics, like Jared mentioned earlier, you really cannot do the same thing. It's just the effect's not there. You can't sell your digital comic. And because of that, like, if this industry is prepared to lose all that money, and I know it's a lot of money, and the reason I know it's a lot of money is I couldn't track through the internet, and I tried for over an hour to figure out how many of these back issues are sold. They're not sold, plain and simple. It's really that simple.
Yeah.
And what I kind of noticed was, if you look at the basic comic industry, now people have a pretty doomy, gloomy attitude. I get it. It's 2020, everybody. There's not much to be excited about. But when you look into the future here, the last 5 years, and I like to give credit where it's due. The last 5 years, and this is according to Comicron, essentially what you've seen is new comic sales to shops are between 1 to 1.2 billion. Granted, there was a $200 million jump this year in 2020, which is interesting, but it's basically what it's been for the last, I'd say, 20 years. It's stagnant. It is definitely not declining in a massive, alarming rate, but it is also not rising either. And like we talked about earlier today, Donald, with those Miles Morales comics, that was released in 2011. People who are selling them are going to make a massive amount of money off of those, and that just is not possible with the digital comic. One other number that I'd like to point out to you too, just basic business acumen here. I was able to see, and this is through Zub Tales, the average comic book prints for about 80 cents. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, the sticker price is about $4 to $5, correct?
Yes.
That's about right.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously that looks like a massive profit on the book, but you obviously need employees to make that book get made, and so on and so forth. And if you're a comic artist, your rates have been dropping according to the yearly average. I mean, it's almost poverty-stricken at this point. So I'm just, they have to find a way to get the material either to be more efficient, which honestly would drop people down to a wage that I just don't think is realistic to get full-time attention on that book, that print book. But at the same time, in the digital world, I mean, you also have a variety of other artists that can self-promote and self-publish. So I don't know. I don't think the printed book is going anywhere. I definitely see a stagnation, though, just from my initial analysis.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think I 100% agree. I think the printed market is not. If there's any blip, it's like, yeah, the movies came out, and maybe like more people who didn't normally go into comic shops went into a comic shop, but very little, like not enough to like make a dent. But
Right.
on the other end, yeah, it's stagnant, but it's stagnant where it's a market. I mean, the comic shops have been around for years, like 40 years. That's amazing. The friend of yours. So like, it's it's a business. It's not going anywhere. It's providing money. So like,
Why give it up?
Keep it up.
And plus, a key factor is people our age, and certainly older, and even slightly younger, are consistent buyers of the physical books.
Right.
Consistent buyers of the variant books. Consistent buyers going to conventions, going into those back issues.
But
I'll compare
Why would you give that up?
I'll compare it to a small town, your local cafe, not your Starbucks, but your local cafe that people go to. It's got regular customers. They go to every now and then. Somebody else moves in. They go to that shop too. You're not rich, but you're not poor. You're just thriving. You're thriving.
Right.
So as long as they're thriving, keep them going.
And we're
Right.
looking at, we're basically, your local comic shop is pretty much the Cheers bar.
Yeah.
You go
Where
there.
everyone knows your name.
Yeah, you go in there, they say, hello, Donald, or hello, Kevin, hello, Jared, hello, Darren. Good to see you guys, got your books right here pulled for you. If you need anything else, let me know. You want something to
also-
drink, you want a slice of pizza, something like that. It's a
They're also-
clubhouse. It's a place to be, to talk, to discuss not only comic books, but everything in a comic book world. How many times have you guys talked politics, but not in an actual way that it was our politics? It was comic book politics, but
Right.
that kind of mirrored what we were dealing with in the real world. And it was
Right.
very fascinating to see that there oftentimes was a different drawing line between like a Republican and a Democrat or whatever, because they were talking about a different universe and in a different way that people got along and coalesced. And it's fascinating to be a part of that. So I don't see that going away anytime soon.
These are special places. The
yeah.
LCSs, the conventions, they're places for people to socialize, make new friends, and like you said, just talk about things. It's part of human nature. You want to socialize with people. You want to physically say, "Hey, what's up? How you doing?"
Yep. I mean,
that-
we do this right here because we were doing the live broadcast of We Can Be Heroes, which of course we're going to be doing again sometime relatively soon in the near future. We're going to be discussing that before we end the evening out. But we're going to continue to do these as long as people are watching them. And because it's a way for us to connect too, the four of us to be together and to connect and to see each other and say hello and chat a little bit before we get started and stuff. And it's a good way to do that. But it sure does not beat meeting somebody in person and hanging out and kicking back and relaxing. It's true. It does not. But the digital world has its place. Let's just say that.
Yep. All we need, and all I'm asking for, is some balance. That's all we need. Some balance. The two could live together.
Yeah.
Yep. I think you're right. Does anybody out there in the chat section have any questions? We're going to be wrapping up shortly, so if you want to throw any of your theories out there, as wild as they may be, or have any questions, as general as they may be, and even if they sound like, oh no, I might be embarrassed by it, trust us, we will not make fun of you. It does not matter to us. We're here to help, and we're here to answer whatever you need. So,
Jared
please.
might snicker. He might snicker.
Maybe.
So you want a Snickers? Because I just bought some today.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's,
you
it's
did?
mainly because I like
Yeah.
Snickers.
Almond butter maple Snickers, which sound amazing.
Yeah.
Not all amazing, I'll tell you.
Yeah, don't try and make a healthy candy bar. It's a candy bar. What?
End of the day, that's absolutely correct.
Yep.
That's why we eat them.
That is why we eat them. So I guess I'm not getting any comments right now. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and start doing our closing discussions here, guys. Basically, what we mentioned was we talked about what we were dealing with as far as comic book companies. They produce the comics. They hire a distribution company to distribute the comics to the local comic shop, which then sells the comic books to us. Some comics are printed at a higher amount, like a Superman or Batman title, versus a Young Justice title or something along those lines. So we're looking at the fact that some of these become more rare. Variant covers, they do this on purpose. They'll print one out of every 100 of a regular Venom cover. We'll have a variant cover. And the shop can sell that for at whatever they want, as long as they hit the amount of books. So, for example, if I'm a comic book shop, and Marvel Comics tells me, if you buy 500 Venom number 27 comics, we will give you a 1 in 1,000 variant cover of Venom riding on a unicorn that's also venomized over a rainbow into the Bifrost.
with a thong, like the symbiote goes away from his butt cheek, so you can see that.
Right. So, what do you think, guys? And then, some of the shops are like, I can't afford that shit. Just give me the regular books. Other shops are like, yes, I want that book. The 500 books, I'll buy them all. So they buy the 500 books or 1,000 books or whatever.
Customers.
And then they buy all these books, and then they get that 1 in 1,000, and then they go, let me put this on the shelf for $700.
Yep.
You know? And
or they put it on eBay secretly.
Yeah, or they put it on eBay. Yeah, exactly. So it's not going to the exact person. So anyway, they create and they generate the market. So basically what we're saying is that although AT&T / Disney might be looking at going all digital, it's not going to happen anytime soon. But if it does happen, there are ways around that they could course correct, such as Penguin publishing from Random House, creating trades that could then have the first appearances in printed form to kind of find a nice medium. Stuff like that they could find their way around. Comic book shops are still around. Some were in trouble, some closed. Some got smart, started these online sales. Elite Comics 11, I believe, was doing something where they were doing a Remedy tour where they were just trying to save other shops. Sounded like a beautiful thing, and it is a beautiful thing. So other shops started to be a part of that, and some other shops was like, we're going to try our own thing similar to that in order to survive. And some of them, a lot of them have survived, and that's a great thing. So while I've been talking, we've had a few questions. David Denenberg asked, will Wonder Woman just be delayed again or go video on demand?
Good question.
It'll go to the theaters.
Yeah, I think if they'll delay it one more time if necessary.
Yeah.
I feel like it's too massive of an investment. I can't see them going stream with it.
Although Disney, having Mulan go to Disney Plus is a very interesting strategy. I think what other studios are going to observe that and see how successful that is, and then if it works, they might say, you know what?
Well, here's the thing, though. Disney, keep in mind, they own their own platform.
True. That's true.
So they can afford to do that because the more subscribers they get wanting to see that, then they can get some of that money back.
Yeah.
So keep that.
I don't think it's going to do well, to be honest.
No.
That format. But
David Denenberg also said Tenet made $50 million globally. Not bad. Not bad. You're right. Not bad at all globally.
That was theater release, right?
Yeah, it was a theater release.
Also, New Mutants also got released too, if I recall.
New Mutants and Bill and Ted Face the Music. The third Bill and Ted. Chris Turner says he saw it today. Overrated.
Which one?
he saw Tenet. Then he said, "Go see Bill and Ted instead."
I heard it's fun,
I heard the same.
which it should be. It's Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
Plus, it's
Yep.
been like
I
almost
heard
30
it's
years since the last
depressing.
movie.
Yeah. 7 million domestic for New Mutants, so not well. That's what David just said. 7 million. David, that did not do well at all, buddy.
No, and it caught about, I think it hit about 800,000 in the midnight screenings.
Yeah.
So honestly, that sounded positive, but I mean, I don't, want to be cocky about it, but this guy right here suspected it might not do well.
Yeah.
Well, but also consider the circumstances. You
I-
don't have a wide release either.
Yeah. David, I've
When it
only...
came out was kind of. I thought it was going to be like the fifth signal of the apocalypse, but I was like, oh wow, it actually came out. Okay.
Yeah, right? You didn't think you were going to do it. David, I think you're right. I only heard one person that told me it was really good, and I think they were drunk. So I don't hear
Everything's
anything.
better drunk.
I don't hear anything good about New Mutants. But I think, gentlemen, we're going to wrap it up. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I know this was a short and sweet one, but honestly, there's enough to talk about here, but we don't want to drag it on.
Quality over quantity.
Right. So we were trying to be keeping concise, short and sweet, basically, on what we wanted to say and what we wanted to do. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Please subscribe to us. We are currently, as far as our podcast platforms are concerned, we're on Spreaker. We are on Stitcher. We are on SoundCloud. And we are also on YouTube as well. You can find us on those platforms, readily available there, where we have new material, weekly, if not semi-weekly. Bi-weekly? I don't know how that would go. Bi-weekly is either every 2 weeks or
Every 2 weeks.
once
Every 2 weeks.
or twice a week. It's every 2 weeks, yeah.
Sweet.
Every 2 weeks.
Yeah, so bi-weekly or every week, basically, is what we put out with the podcast. Thank you, Enrique. He says, thank you, guys. Have a good night. Thank you, Enrique, for tuning in. We appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you, Enrique.
Someday we'll be able to see you at a Comic-Con or a Disney or something in the future, and we'll have a good time hanging out. So thank you all for tuning in. Anybody else have anything to say?
Just be safe out there, people.
If we don't see you in the digital world, we will see you at the comic shop.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Sure.
Have a good night. Take care.